Okay, can I start with that?
Please.
Yeah, please,
Okay.
please.
I thought that actually a 4 was needed. Like, I'm probably in the...
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I did, because I felt like they did need to find out where Bo was. They brought it back several times where it was like, Woody would say, kind of reference Bo and how much he missed her. And, Buzz and Jesse got together. He was always kind of missing that soulmate that he had loved, right? So I kind of thought that they could really actually make a story out of it. What was disappointing for me is I felt like this whole movie, they were setting it up to be able to either split the franchise and make separate movies or maybe add some for the streaming service. So I kind of felt like they were just adding little storylines and new characters for that reason, if that makes sense.
You kind of see the behind the scenes at work here, the people, the money counters, like, hey, if we have this group of toys over here and this group of toys over here, we can do sequels or spinoffs. So you're right. Now they have the new streaming service. They can do a mini series with Key and Peele. There's so many options now.
Okay, so for what Jamie just said there, so to me, I don't think that they needed to make this movie, because we discussed it and we're like, yeah, it was a perfect ending. But for as far as Bo Peep goes, to me, it was enough to know that Andy was older and he had only kept the toys that meant something to him. I actually edited out of our Toy Story 2 podcast. I had said that Bo Peep was a lamp, and then I questioned myself, and I deleted it out of the podcast. But she was a lamp, so I knew I was right there somewhere. But I knew it was the sister's lamp as well. And when I was editing the podcast, I'm like, I don't know where I got that information from, but I must be wrong. And clearly I wasn't wrong. So for me, it was good enough to know that the toys had just been given away or sold or something, because that's what happens with toys. And so all that was left were the toys that meant the most to Andy, right? And so he kept these ones all the time. It made sense to me that these toys were gone, is the summation of my thing. And again, I really think that Toy Story 3 was the summation of the whole franchise, because the toys that were his loved ones were passed on to be loved again. And to me, that was the ultimate happy ending to this franchise. And also, this movie was a downer ending. So it's a completely different tone of an ending from the last movie.
All the posters, you see Bo Peep, right? I'm like, hey, she wasn't in Toy Story 3. She's back for Toy Story 4. What did you guys think of Bo Peep coming back and playing such a large role in the film?
Well, I did feel like we did a really good job. Like, they did a good job telling us what she had been up to in her past and stuff. But I didn't feel like they explained why she wanted to go travel so bad and not want another kid. Like, I don't feel like they pushed that passion enough, because when it was kind of came down to the choice between Woody having to go and choose her or his friends, I didn't understand why she made them choose. Like, why didn't she just go with Bonnie and the friends? Like, they were her friends too. So it didn't quite make sense to me, like, her motivation, if that makes sense, for her future and what she saw. So I felt like that part was kind of lost, but they did a good job catching it up to that point.
I thought this plot line was very interesting for this movie. Like, it right from the beginning, it threw me for a loop by having this. I knew Bo Peep was in it because of the posters and whatnot. And so when they did 9 years ago, I was actually expecting something to take place during Andy's youth, because I hadn't seen any trailers or anything. So when they jumped forward to post Bonnie, I'm like, okay, well, I wasn't expecting that now either. But, we've almost got this idea of what we had in Toy Story 3, where Sunnyvale is like this mythological place where they're always going to be played with. And that's kind of the point of view that Bo Peep has, except they're like lost toys in this sand pit near this like carnival or something like that, which I'm guessing the carnival is permanent. I'm making the assumption that the carnival is permanent in this little town.
Well, they were saying at the end that they were going to move, right? And that's
was
why...
the carnival going to move?
Yeah, and then that was kind of her motivation of, I'm going to travel, the world with this carnival. Like, it was kind of weird. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. So But even still, she had clearly been there for a while because her lamp was in that antique shop, but she had left and was playing in that area. But it's like, why would they want to play in this? Like, toys being left out in the weather would wreck them. Like, so I'm like, why would they think this is such a great thing? Like, there was some cute stuff where, like, I liked the fact that RC car had been turned into a skunk, things like that. But again, I didn't understand how these toys loved being these lost toys so much. It didn't make sense to me from what we've seen from toys as well. Yeah. So yes, I kind of agree with you there. I didn't quite understand that motivation.
I appreciated the aspect of like the lost toys and the whole idea of like Forky, how one person's trash could be another person's something valuable to them, right? And meaningful. So I did like that idea of like what happens to toys once they're not useful anymore. Like, I liked where they went with that, but I agree there was some plot holes that didn't quite make sense. Like, and I felt like they tried to tie it around at the end when they were like, relating it to when Buzz says, to, Woody that, oh, he's going to be a lost toy now. And Buzz says, no, he's not. He's found
He's not
now,
lost anymore. So,
right? yeah. Implying that he was lost until, which he really was. He was lost without Andy, and so that was kind of like,
it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Zach, what did you think of Bo Peep?
Ultimately, what I learned from this movie was that I wish Andy just would have taken Woody to college and everything would have been fine, because he's the one toy that Bonnie like didn't really care about. Although he gave her obviously he gave him to her at the end because she was like, oh, snake in my boots. It's like, oh, this little kid has an attachment to Woody, and I'm gonna leave him with all the friends when he was the one toy he was gonna take to college. So.
But not really. She didn't really have it. Turns out.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's the problem. Yeah, because there's not. It's interesting that Toy Story 3 takes place like in the real time, if you will. Like Andy is 10 years older. We're all 10 years older. That was interesting. And you posed the question last week, Brandon. Why not pick up Toy Story 3 right after Toy Story 2? And that's kind of what they did with Toy Story 4. It picked up kind of right after Toy Story 3, maybe a year or two. I'm not sure how old she was supposed to be in Toy Story 3, but if she's starting kindergarten, I mean, she's like maybe a year or two older. So, did she just not care about Woody anymore? Like, she literally I don't know why she just doesn't care about Woody anymore. I mean, I know you're a little kid and you have your favorites and stuff, but to just kind of ignore them when you're playing with all these other toys, especially all these other toys, you got them all together. Like, they all showed up, like Buzz Lightyear and Rex and all these guys showed up all together. And she suddenly doesn't like Woody when Woody was the one that she kind of enjoyed by itself from before. So it didn't break the movie for me, because I understood like they need to put Woody in the same position he's kind of like was in the first movie, right? Where he was the favorite and now he's not anymore. Although you understood the transition in the first movie. It was like, oh, well, Andy was in a cowboy phase and now he's got this new cool spaceman phase, right? And you understand that. This is like, she just kind of got tired of Woody. Although to a 5-year-old, is Woody that different than Jessie? Like, they're just two little cowboy toys. So
yeah, I was gonna say that. I think like the reason is now she's got Jessie and it's a girl and she's a girl, so I can buy that. It seemed weird. I was okay with the fact that Woody seemed to be okay with the fact that he wasn't getting played with, but. I'm just gonna break the dam here. I didn't really like this movie.
Oh, there it is.
So I'm just going to break the dam
around
here.
It, guys. Let's just get it all out there. Just get it all out there.
Okay, and honestly, now maybe it's because my kids never went through a phase like this. This whole Forky plot line, I really did not get behind. I did not get behind this Forky toy. And honestly, like, I don't know, maybe it's me, maybe it's going too much into it, but I thought that this Forky plotline was kind of disturbing, with this fork that was continually trying to, like, kill itself by jumping in the trash.
I thought that too. No, I read it. I thought that too. I was like, this is basically a toy that's committing suicide regularly, and it's like a joke, right? I don't know. Did you pick up on that too? Is that just us?
Jamie?
You know what? I honestly liked Forky, just because...
Okay, good.
Just because the aspect of, like, trash into treasure and how a toy can be anything, right? Like, I love that, because back in the day, you'd find a stick and it was, like a gun out, in your backyard. So I really enjoyed that aspect, but I do understand how, he could be a little freaky.
I mean, I get what you're saying. It's weird because in the Toy Story universe, toys are alive, right? So like, what?
Yes.
Even at the end of the movie, they're like, "How am I alive? I don't know." And I'm like, "All right, at least you kind of addressed it. Like, I give it some credit for addressing the weirdness of it. But just because like we took a spork out of the trash,
which I'm okay with that, okay? Because I'll call back to my favorite thing about Toy Story 3, which is, you know, when Mr. Potato Head took his eyes out and put it in the tortilla. And I even asked the question in the podcast. I'm like, where's the tortilla and where's the potato
where's the
head,
essence
right?
of the toy? Where is it?
Where's the essence?
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I could take that leap of logic. But I'm just like, okay, maybe my kids never did it, but what I didn't like about this was I didn't like this coddling aspect that Woody had for Bonnie, and where she's like, Bonnie's latched onto this fork, and we have to protect Bonnie at all costs. I don't know, maybe I'm a bad parent. Jamie, you could tell me if I am, but I don't support that kind of parenting. Like, to me, yes, I've had my kids where they'll come home with like 5,000 different things that they created in daycare that day, and I'm sorry, I'm a bad parent. Half of them end up in the garbage today. Half of them end up in the garbage 3 days from now, right? But there's times when our kid will find one of them, they'll see it in the garbage, like, I want to keep that, and it's like, okay, fine, we'll give it back to you. But then like a day later, it'll end up in the garbage again. And I don't know, I understand that some kids can be intimidated by school, right? But for this fork to be 2 days and for them to be putting this much effort to find this fork and for Woody to be constantly putting this much effort for this suicidal fork, like, I couldn't get behind that for the first half of this movie. So I found the first half of this movie incredibly frustrating.
See, I got that because to me it was showing his insecurity of Woody looking for purpose, because, you know, you could see in the beginning, like, Dolly was kind of taking the lead with the toys, saying stay in the closet, you know, that she was taking the lead with all of them. And so he wasn't a favorite toy. He wasn't the leader among the toys anymore. So he had no purpose anymore. He was with those chairs in the back, you know, with getting a dust bunny, right? And so for him, Forky was kind of his purpose, his mission in that moment, right? For I have no other purpose. I'm going to be a dust bunny in closet, right? So I kind of got behind that. Even the other toys didn't understand it though, you know, because at one point even he's like, we need to get, you know, Bonnie's toy, his favorite toy. I have to be loyal to it, kind of thing. And they're like, well, what about us? You know, like, why are you leaving us to go get him? He's a piece of garbage. Like, the other toys didn't even get it either, but it was all about Woody searching for purpose, right? He was lost in Sandy, kind of harking back to the end.
I get what you're saying, Brandon. I thought that too, like him constantly trying to kill himself. I mean, because that's what he is, right? He's trying to throw himself away. I did find that odd, and I wasn't sure if they really thought that through with having this main new character always try to, you know, jump in the garbage. But I agree with you too, Jamie, because we've all done that. We've used our imaginations. I mean, that's what toys and play is all about, using your imaginations. And, oh, this stick is a lightsaber, or, you know, or et cetera, et cetera. So I get that too. So I get what they were going for, because, you know, they didn't want to just rehash the old stuff. Like, what, this was a new thing, right? This is someone creates a toy, so that almost like puts more soul into it, because Bonnie made, you know, Forky herself. So I get what they're going for with that. But it just, I guess maybe just it's so different than the other ones, it's hard to kind of maybe see how it sits up there with the other films and what they do. I think ultimately that's kind of where we're having trouble wrapping our minds around it, maybe.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was kind of like, even when I saw the trailer and they were going around with all the characters, and then it comes to Forky, and I'm like, what is going on? What are they doing? Like, it didn't make sense. To me, though, it was a totally different movie than the other three, right? You know, so it didn't really necessarily fit in with the other three, but I got it where they were going with it. But it did throw me for a loop. It was kind of weird.
I mean, we mentioned Bo Peep. I did like seeing the scene where she leaves, you know. That could have worked on its own, and perhaps a Disney short, right? Or a Pixar short before another movie, you know, like Bo Peep says goodbye or something, right? He's like, oh, that's what happened to Bo Peep, you know? I think that would have, because it was a little vignette that would have been like, okay, this is how Woody and her say goodbye, and then maybe in some future short they reunite or something like that. Because I do think that it was just a way to show the passage of time. Although they did say, and we mentioned this in the last episode, that part of the reason they left her out of Toy Story 3 was she's like porcelain, so if they're in an like incinerator, she would have like definitely melted or broken. Although if we're gonna start